Let me ask you something. What would you do if tomorrow you woke up and your refrigerator just stopped working? Like forever. What would you do with all that food inside? The milk, the yogurt, the cheese, the meat, the vegetables. How long do you think that food would last on your counter? 2 days? 3 at most before everything starts to rot and you have to throw it all away? Pause and think about it for a second, because the truth is, most of us wouldn't know what to do. We're completely dependent on that white box in the kitchen. If it fails, our food fails along with it. But now I want to tell you something that's going to blow your mind. There's a community living right here in the United States, in the middle of the 21st century, that doesn't even have a refrigerator. No freezer, no electric appliances, no power from the grid, nothing. And yet, these people have milk, have yogurt, have fresh cheese, have cured meat, have preserved vegetables, have live fermented foods all year round, in abundance, without losing a single thing. I'm talking about the Amish. And what these folks do borders on the miraculous. Just think about this for a second. Fresh cabbage rots in 2 weeks. Raw milk spoils in 3 days on the counter. Fresh meat doesn't even last 24 hours in summer heat. Fresh cucumber turns mushy in a week. So how on earth do the Amish, with no refrigeration of any kind, have these same foods available year-round, always fresh, always ready to eat? The answer isn't magic. It's ancestral wisdom. It's techniques refined over centuries that we in modern society almost completely forgot because we got lazy relying on the fridge. And among all the preservation methods they use, fermentation is the absolute queen. It's the crown jewel. Because when you ferment a food properly, something extraordinary happens. The beneficial bacteria that naturally exists in the food or that you add through a starter culture begin multiplying like crazy. They consume the sugars, produce lactic acid, and create an environment so acidic that no bad bacteria can survive there. The food basically preserves itself, without artificial refrigeration, without chemical preservatives, without anything from a factory. It's self-preservation in its purest and most genius form. And here's what really blows my mind about all this. We're at the pharmacy paying a fortune for bottles of probiotic capsules, thinking we're doing something good for our health. Meanwhile, the Amish have been eating live probiotics in every single meal for centuries and don't spend a penny on any of it because they produce everything at home. Homemade yogurt, living kefir, fresh sauerkraut, real fermented pickles, homemade kombucha. These fermented foods are three things at once. First, delicious, with deep, complex, unique flavors you'll never find in industrial products. Second, incredibly medicinal, packed with billions of beneficial bacteria that heal the gut, boost immunity, and even improve mood. And third, they last absurdly long without needing any refrigeration, stored in cool cellars or on pantry shelves, sometimes for years on end. And listen carefully, because this is fundamental for you to understand. Every single food we're going to talk about today starts as a perishable food. Stuff that would rot quickly in its natural state. Stuff that would need a refrigerator to last even a few days. But when the Amish apply their fermentation techniques, these foods transform into something that lasts months, even years, with no plug, no cord, no electricity. And more than that, they become nutritionally superior to the original product. Fermentation is literally one of the only food processes that makes food more nutritious, not less. The bacteria produce vitamins that weren't there before, they break down compounds that make food hard to digest, they make minerals more absorbable. It's one of the greatest gifts nature ever gave humanity. So grab a cup of coffee, get comfortable, because today I'm going to share with you the 25 fermented foods that keep Amish pantries full year-round, without any electricity, without any modern technology, keeping entire families healthy through the harshest winters. After you hear this, you're going to look at your refrigerator differently, I promise. Let's go. Number 1 is sauerkraut. Of course we're going to start with it because it's absolutely the king of Amish fermentation. Sauerkraut is basically fermented cabbage with salt, and that's it, nothing more. The Amish cut the cabbage very thin, mix it with coarse salt, pound it hard until it releases its own juice, and pack everything into a clay or glass crock, pressing down well so the cabbage stays submerged in its own liquid. Then they cover it with a clean cloth and leave it fermenting for 3 to 6 weeks in a cool place. During this time, beneficial bacteria called lactobacilli transform the sugars from the cabbage into lactic acid, which not only preserves the food but creates that unique, tangy, deep flavor. And the benefits are absurd. Sauerkraut has billions of live probiotics per serving, more than any industrial yogurt. It's rich in vitamin C, vitamin K, B vitamins, it strengthens immunity, improves digestion, reduces intestinal inflammation, and can even help with anxiety and depression, because 90% of serotonin is produced in the gut. A well-made pot of sauerkraut lasts an entire year in a cool cellar. The Amish eat this with almost every meal. Number 2 is fermented pickles. And pay attention here because it's not those industrial pickles you buy at the supermarket. Real fermented pickles by the Amish don't use vinegar. They use only salt, water, fresh cucumbers, dill, garlic, mustard seeds, and sometimes a few cherry or grape leaves to keep them crunchy. The cucumbers go in the jar, are covered in brine, and spend about 2 weeks fermenting naturally. The result is a pickle packed with probiotics, with deep flavor, crunchy, and that lasts months in a cool cellar. And you know what's amazing? Fermented pickles have the same probiotic benefits as kombucha or kefir, but nobody talks about it. The Amish learned this generations ago and turned it into a pantry staple. Fresh cucumber would rot in a week, but transformed into fermented pickle, it lasts 6 months or more easily. Number 3 is kefir. This is something that really fascinates me in Amish tradition. Kefir is fermented milk, and it's basically the most potent probiotic food that exists in nature. While yogurt has 4 or 5 strains of bacteria, kefir can have up to 60 different strains of probiotics, plus beneficial yeasts. The Amish keep living kefir cultures that literally pass from mother to daughter, grandmother to granddaughter for generations. Those kefir grains, which look like small cauliflower florets, have been in some Amish families for over 100 years. And they just put fresh milk in a jar with the grains, cover with a cloth, and let it ferment for 24 hours at room temperature. The next day, you strain, you take out the grains for the next batch, and drink the kefir. Fresh milk would spoil in 3 days, but transformed into kefir, it lasts weeks in a cool cellar. And the benefits? It regulates the entire digestive system, strengthens bones, improves immunity dramatically, helps with lactose intolerance, and is a potent ally against depression and anxiety. Number 4 is natural yogurt, similar to kefir but a bit different. The Amish heat fresh milk, let it cool a bit, add a spoonful of yogurt from the previous batch as a culture starter, and leave everything covered in a warm place for about 8 hours. The result is thick, creamy, tangy yogurt full of probiotics. And they also make labna, which is strained yogurt, removing the whey through a cheesecloth. Labna is thicker, almost like a cream cheese, and lasts even longer. Natural yogurt is essential for gut health, for calcium absorption, for strong bones, and for keeping the immune system working well. The Amish eat yogurt every day, with honey, with fruit, with granola, or just plain as a side dish for meals. Number 5 is kombucha. Yes, the Amish drink kombucha. It's not a modern, trendy thing. It's a traditional fermented beverage that has existed for thousands of years, originally coming from Asia, but adopted by many fermentation cultures around the world. They take black or green tea, sweetened with sugar, add a SCOBY, which is that mother of kombucha, a rubbery disc that's actually a community of beneficial bacteria and yeasts working together, and leave fermenting for about 7 to 14 days. The sugar is consumed by the microorganisms, transforming into probiotics, organic acids, B vitamins, and tiny amounts of alcohol naturally produced. The result is a slightly fizzy, tangy drink that's basically liquid medicine. It helps with digestion, detoxifies the liver, boosts immunity, gives natural energy, and some studies even show potential benefits against certain types of cancer.
And stored in well-sealed glass bottles after a second fermentation with fruits or herbs, kombucha lasts months in a cool cellar, developing increasingly complex flavors over time. The SCOBY itself, if well cared for, is basically immortal, reproducing itself with each batch. Number 6 is fermented cabbage, kimchi style. Some Amish communities have adopted kimchi-like preparations, or have their own ancient versions with similar concept. They ferment cabbage with garlic, chili peppers, onion, and other aromatic vegetables, creating a more complex and spicy fermentation than basic sauerkraut. The result is super flavorful, medicinal, and lasts months. The mix of fermented ingredients multiplies the health benefits, combining probiotics with antibacterial compounds from garlic and onion. It's basically an immune system bomb in every spoonful. Number 7 is fermented beets, and this is where it gets interesting. Beet kvass, as it's called, is a traditional drink made with fermented beets, water, and salt. The beets are topped, placed in a jar, covered with salted water, and left fermenting for 1 to 2 weeks. The result is a ruby red drink, slightly tangy, deeply nourishing. Beet kvass is a liver tonic, powerfully detoxifying, rich in iron, folate, and probiotics. The Amish drink this kvass during the winter when they need that extra energy and immunity boost. Fresh beets would last a few months in sand, but in kvass form, it lasts for months in a cool cellar, and each glass is a health boost. Number 8 is fermented carrots. The Amish ferment carrots with salt and spices, creating a preserve that's naturally sweet, crunchy, and full of probiotics. Carrots can be grated or cut into sticks, mixed with salt and sometimes ginger or herbs, and packed into jars with brine. In 3 to 7 days, you have a fermented carrot product with an amazing flavor, perfect as a side dish or snack. And carrot beta-carotene combined with probiotics creates a powerful combination for vision, skin, immunity, and gut health. Number 9 is lacto-fermented garlic. Listen to this. Garlic is already incredibly medicinal fresh, but when you ferment it, it becomes even more powerful. The Amish peel whole garlic cloves, submerge them in salted water in a glass jar, sometimes adding a bit of honey or spices like bay leaf, and leave them fermenting for 3 to 4 weeks at room temperature. During this process, the garlic loses a lot of its raw pungency and that harsh burning sensation, developing a milder, more complex, almost sweet flavor. But here's the genius of fermentation. The medicinal compounds multiply and become more bioavailable. Fermented garlic is an immune system booster on steroids, combats bacterial and viral infections, lowers blood pressure more effectively than fresh garlic, reduces cholesterol, and is much easier to digest because fermentation breaks down those compounds that cause garlic breath and stomach discomfort. Plus, it lasts a year or more easily in jars, something that fresh garlic could never do. Some Amish families eat 1 or 2 fermented garlic cloves daily as preventative medicine, and the results are impressive, rarely get sick. Number 10 is miso-style fermented bean paste. Well, not traditional Japanese miso, but some Amish communities make their own fermented bean paste with traditional German techniques. They cook beans, mix with salt and sometimes grains, and leave fermenting for several months in clay pots. The result is an umami-rich, probiotic, long-lasting paste, similar in concept to Asian miso. It's used to give deep flavor to soups, stews, and sauces. And besides being incredibly flavorful, it's super nutritious, rich in vegetable protein, B vitamins, and beneficial microorganisms. Number 11 is apple cider vinegar. Yes, real apple cider vinegar, raw, with the mother, is a fermented product and an absolute staple in the Amish pantry. They take cider, pressed from their own apples, leave it fermenting first to alcohol, then to acetic acid. The whole process takes months. The result is a raw, cloudy, living vinegar full of beneficial bacteria, enzymes, and organic acids. It regulates blood sugar, improves digestion, alkalizes the body despite being acidic, fights infections, helps with weight loss, and serves as medicine for dozens of different problems. And the best part? It lasts literally years in a glass bottle, getting even better with time. Number 12 is fermented sourdough bread. I know what you're thinking. Bread is not exactly a perishable food that the Amish preserve for long periods. But the sourdough starter, that living fermentation culture that makes the bread rise, is. Amish sourdough starters pass from generation to generation. Some are over a century old. That wild fermented dough with natural yeasts and lactobacillus is what creates that special Amish bread with deep flavor, crunchy crust, moist interior. And the fermented bread is much more digestible than bread made with commercial yeast, has lower glycemic index, and the long fermentation neutralizes anti-nutrients from wheat, making the minerals more bioavailable. A well-cared-for sourdough starter is practically immortal. Number 13 is beer and fermented grain beverages. Although controversy exists in some communities about alcohol consumption, many Amish families historically prepared small grain fermented beverages like low-alcohol beer, which was safer than water in certain historical periods. Grain fermentation has always been a way to preserve calories and nutrients. Today, this is less common, but the fermentation technique with grains, barley, rye, oats is still used for other products, including drinks similar to non-alcoholic kvass made from fermented bread.
Number 14 is fermented fruits in brandy or vinegar. The Amish preserve fruits like cherries, plums, and pears in vinegar or fermented syrup, creating preserves that last years. The fruits are submerged in a fermented liquid and slowly absorb the flavor, while the liquid absorbs the fruit's characteristics. The result is an intense flavor bomb that serves as both dessert and medicine. Preserved fruits like this have probiotics, concentrated antioxidants, and digestive enzymes. A jar like this can last 5 years on a pantry shelf. Number 15 is fermented cucumbers in style called half sour. Different from full sour pickles, these are lighter, fermented for only a few days, maintaining a crunchier texture and fresher flavor. They're still full of probiotics, but with a milder taste that many people prefer. Perfect for those just starting with fermented foods. Number 16 is fermented green tomatoes. At the end of the season, when many tomatoes haven't ripened yet, the Amish don't throw them away. They ferment them with garlic, dill, hot peppers, and salt, creating a delicious preserve that lasts months. It's a classic example of Amish ancestral wisdom, not wasting anything, using everything the land provides. And green fermented tomatoes are different from red tomatoes. They have their own characteristic flavor, slightly more acidic, and still full of probiotics. Number 17 is fermented peppers, both hot and bell peppers. The Amish ferment peppers with salt and sometimes garlic, creating condiments that last months and add unique flavor to dishes. Fermented peppers preserve vitamin C, concentrate flavor, and add probiotics to any meal. Some families make hot sauce from fermented peppers, a tradition that exists on all continents with local variations. Number 18 is fermented bean paste for soups. Different from miso, this is a more Germanic Amish style, where fermented beans are used as a base for hearty soups. The beans ferment for days or weeks, developing deep flavor and superior nutritional properties. Lectins and anti-nutrients that exist in unfermented beans are eliminated in the process, making the beans more digestible and nutritious. Number 19 is sour cream and cultured butter. Amish butter is often made with cream that was first fermented. This fermented cream, called culture or clabber cream, produces butter with much deeper flavor than regular butter, plus tangy buttermilk as a byproduct, which in turn is used to make pancakes, biscuits, and a super nourishing fermented drink. This cultured butter lasts longer than normal butter and has a more intense, almost cheesy flavor. Number 20 is aged fermented cheese. Traditional Amish cheese making is practically all based on fermentation. Fresh milk is acidified with natural cultures, forms curds, and then goes through weeks, months, or even years of aging in cool cellars. During this process, bacteria and molds continue working on the cheese, developing increasingly complex flavors, concentrating nutrients, and creating a product that basically doesn't spoil anymore. A well-aged cheese can last years, always getting better, and is packed with probiotics, enzymes, and bioavailable minerals. Number 21 is fermented mustard. The Amish grind mustard seeds with vinegar, salt, and sometimes honey or other ingredients, and let the mixture ferment for days or weeks. The result is a fermented mustard with a deep, complex flavor, far superior to industrial mustard. And the fermentation makes mustard seed compounds more bioavailable, increasing their antibacterial and digestive properties. A jar of fermented mustard lasts years in the pantry. Number 22 is fermented vegetable relish, a Pennsylvania Dutch tradition called chow chow. It's a colorful mix of fermented or pickled vegetables, including beans, peppers, cauliflower, carrots, corn, and onions, all preserved in fermented or vinegar-based sauce. It's a classic example of using the last vegetables of the season before winter. A well-made chow chow lasts over a year and is an explosion of flavor and probiotics. Number 23 is fermented hot pepper sauce, similar to traditional hot sauce, but made with slow fermentation. The peppers ferment for weeks in salted brine, developing a deep, complex flavor that goes far beyond just spicy heat. Some Amish communities have their own secret recipes for these sauces, passed down through generations. A bottle of fermented hot sauce lasts years, only getting better with time. Number 24 is ginger bug and fermented sodas. Ginger bug is a fermentation starter made with fresh ginger, sugar, and water, which over days develops its own beneficial bacteria and wild yeast colony. From this starter, the Amish make various naturally carbonated fermented sodas, with flavors like ginger, lemon, berry, apple, and more. These fermented sodas are super healthy alternatives to industrial sodas, packed with probiotics, and have natural bubbles from the CO2 produced by fermentation. Children love them, and they're perfect for teaching the new generation to appreciate fermented foods. So there you have it. Those are the 25 fermented foods that live in Amish pantries, each one a complete superfood, each one a piece of living medicine, each one a preservation technique that turns perishable food into something that lasts months and years. But I want you to stop and think a little deeper about what we just talked about. Fermentation isn't just a preservation technique. It's a partnership between humans and microorganisms, a collaboration that has existed since the dawn of humanity. Long before we understood bacteria exist, our ancestors already knew that letting certain foods rest in specific ways created something wonderful. They called it magic. Today we know it's microbiology, but the magic is still there. And what impresses me most is that each of these 25 foods I mentioned solves 3 problems at the same time. First, it preserves the food for much longer than the fresh version. Second, it makes the food more nutritious than the original product. And third, it creates a delicious product that adds variety and pleasure to daily meals. 3 birds with 1 stone. It's pure genius, refined over centuries. And you know what's really sad about all of this? We're losing this wisdom. In just 1 or 2 generations, we went from a world where every house had a clay fermentation crock in the kitchen, where grandmothers taught granddaughters to make sauerkraut, where eating fermented food was as normal as breathing, to a world where people buy probiotic capsules in pharmacies because they've completely lost their gut flora. It's absurd, and it's making us sick. And here's the good news. You don't need to be Amish to adopt these techniques. You don't need to have a farm, a clay cellar, or live off the grid. You can start tomorrow in your apartment kitchen with almost zero investment. A simple glass jar, salt, fresh vegetables, and time. That's all it takes to start fermenting at home. Sauerkraut is a perfect recipe to start with because it basically can't go wrong. Cabbage, salt, patience. In 3 weeks, you'll have a superfood made with your own hands. And once you taste real fermentation made at home, living, crunchy, full of flavor, you're never going to want to go back to store-bought industrial fermented foods. Because most of what's sold as fermented on supermarket shelves isn't really fermented anymore. It was pasteurized to have longer shelf life, killing all the beneficial bacteria. It's basically food with fermented flavor, but without fermentation benefits. Tragic. And think about the economy of all this. A pot of homemade sauerkraut costs basically pennies to make. A gallon of kombucha costs a few dollars. A jar of fermented pickles, almost nothing. Compare that with prices of probiotic capsules at the pharmacy, expensive industrial kombuchas, gourmet yogurts. You're literally throwing money away when you could be making products 1,000 times better at home for a fraction of the price. And I'll tell you more, fermentation teaches patience. In this world of instant everything, where we want quick results, few clicks, instant delivery, fermentation forces us to slow down. You can't rush a cabbage that's turning into sauerkraut. It takes 3 weeks. It takes 3 weeks. The bacteria work at their own pace. And there's something healing about waiting for the natural process to happen. It's meditation in food form. So I invite you to take this step. Start small. Choose one of these 25 foods we talk about today and try making it at home. I guarantee that when you eat your first spoonful of homemade sauerkraut, your first sip of homemade kombucha, your first real fermented pickle, you're going to have a revelation. You're going to understand why the Amish stay so healthy eating supposedly simple food. The secret isn't in how simple the food is. It's in how alive it is. And this is the big difference between the modern diet and the traditional Amish diet. Modern food is dead, sterilized, pasteurized, irradiated, full of preservatives that kill everything. The Amish diet is living, full of beneficial bacteria, active enzymes, things that grow and transform and feed our bodies in deep ways. Living food for living bodies. Dead food for dead bodies. It's that simple and that profound. The Amish understood this a long time ago. They keep their crocks of fermentation going like someone tending a sacred fire, that internal transformation fire that turns simple vegetables, simple milk, simple fruits into something extraordinary. So I hope from the bottom of my heart that this conversation has been useful for you, that these 25 fermented foods have inspired you to look at food differently, as a connection with ancestral wisdom, as medicine that you prepare with your own hands. Start today. Start small. Start with just one of these 25 foods. And little by little, you'll start feeling the difference in your digestion, in your immunity, in your energy, in your general mood. Because when the gut is happy, everything is better. And nothing makes the gut happier than these fermented foods that sustain entire generations before us. The Amish know this. Now you know it too. Use this knowledge, share this knowledge, and help reclaim a wisdom that humanity nearly lost. So that was our conversation today. A hug, and until next time.